Hello, and welcome to this episode of Somatic Self Healers. I'm Leah McQuaid, helping you get out of survival mode so you can live a fully embodied life. And blending, how I do that is blending somatics, so body-based work, nervous system, how we apply nervous system work to our everyday lives, and then bringing in the energetic component as well. So today, I'm so excited you're here, by the way. Today we're going to talk about the vagus nerve. And I'll start like we normally do with some information, give you a little bit of that brain candy, right? The mind really likes a little bit of knowledge to help it kind of soften into the experience. Some of us need a lot of knowledge before we soften into the experience, but for these episodes, I try to stick to about 10, 15 minutes or so of information, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little bit more. And then we'll settle into some practices together. Today, we're going to practice some vagus nerve, ventral vagus nerve exercises, practices, and then we'll get into our energetic work using tuning forks in your central channel today is how we're going to use it. So, vagus nerve, here we go. If you're doing somatic work, if you're doing nervous system work, you're gonna hear about the vagus nerve, right? It's a cranial nerve, in case you haven't heard of it. It's a cranial nerve that runs from your head all the way down into your intestines. And this nerve carries the parasympathetic information. So it carries that rest, digest, ooey gooey, connected, calm, relaxed information, right? So it's the opposite of the sympathetic, which is that heightened, oftentimes stressed, really outgoing energy. This is more of that ooey gooey, nourished, relaxed information. So they call it the wandering nerve, right? Which I love so much that it's called the wandering nerve. And they call it that because it has these tendrils. And the tendrils feel their way out from the central channel, the spine, and they feel their way out to all of the organs. The thyroid, the heart, the spleen, the pancreas, the liver, our intestines, our sexual organs, right? So the vagus nerve pretty much touches everything in our body with these tendrils. So it's really important to work with, to think about, to bring online when we want to experience more of that connected, centered, grounded, safe place in our experience of ourselves and in others. So it's really impactful, super impactful and important in this work. And it's important to support the vagus nerve. So when we think about supporting the vagus nerve, we're gonna get into some practices and then also that energetic tuning in just a moment. But I like to think about that flow of information from the brain to the body and from the body to the brain. I like to think of it as being a river, where the river can flow nicely, or there can be some sticks, some stones, some debris that kind of clogs up that flow. So we're going to work with that image a little bit more in our tuning to help this idea of the flow between the body and the mind and the mind and the body. And it's actually researched that there's more information that goes from the body to the brain than the brain and to the body. Right? So the body is so important as the entry point and the attuning point or the focus point of this work, because so much of the information that we get in our internal experience is coming mostly from the body, right? So that flow, that river, yes, we're gonna focus today on the ventral vagal. So there's a theory that likes to talk about it in 3 different parts, and we're gonna use that framework, just that breaking the vagus nerve down into 3 different parts as a way to work with it, right? So it's the ventral vagal, which is the top of the vagus nerve. So like I said, it starts from the head and goes all the way down. So we can think about the ventral vagal, really from the heart space all the way up, right, to the brain stem. And then we've got the central part, which is about the solar plexus area. Then we've got the dorsal vagal, which is below the belly button, right? And so today we're going to stick with the ventral vagal, the top. And when we feel the flow of the ventral vagus nerve, when it's flowing without a whole lot of debris or gunk or junk or blockages, we have a sense of well-being, right? There's a sense of okayness. There's a connection that we can make to ourselves. We can connect to others. And we can tune out distractions. We can really be present when the ventral vagus is online. We can offer support to others. We can engage with others. We're resourced and also resourceful. We're creative. We can problem solve. We're flexible. We're resilient, right? So our system really longs for this, because this is our natural state of being as humans. We're naturally meant to be in this connected, present, resourced and resourceful, creative space. And we remember how to get back to this place. It's a large part of my work that I do is helping people remember that this place is their birthright. To feel pleasure and joy in their lives. This is your birthright. And for many of us, including me, this hasn't always been part of my or maybe your experience, right? And if there's some trauma, some childhood trauma, some wounding that started really early on, maybe there's a large part of our experience where we haven't felt these things, right? And maybe we touch on it a little bit here and there at different points in our lives, but we're meant to be in this connected, flowing, creative, open space most of our life. But unfortunately, we have it switched where most of the time our lives are spent in survival, in constriction, in the lack of flow. So a large part of my work is to help reverse that. Now, I'm not saying that we are designed to stay in this space 24/7. And in fact, as humans, it's virtually impossible in my mind, right? And actually our nervous systems aren't designed to stay in this space all the time. Actually, we're designed to be in flow, in flexibility, right? Where a stressor comes into our life and our nervous system does as the nervous system does. It tells us we're in this threat, and the body, the system responds with fight, flight, or freeze, right? And then we're designed to come out of that when the threat is gone. But unfortunately, a lot of us stay in that survival, that chronic fight, flight, or freeze. And a large part of my work, I'll say it one more time, is to help you come out of that survival. So we're going to do it today. We're going to work with it today. And so that you can come back online and so that you can experience a sense of ease, right? And you can plan and problem solve and be creative. And your brain can stay on, because the thing with survival, right, when we're in a state of survival, when our ventral vagus nerve is offline, our brain starts to shut down, right? Because we need to conserve our energy for survival. And we also start to isolate. We're not as socially engaged when we're in survival. And yeah. And the last thing I'll say before we get into our practices is when our ventral vagal isn't so much online and flowing, right, we can feel the effects of cortisol and adrenaline, the stress hormones in our body. And the more we can start to practice some of the tools I'm going to teach you today, the more we can get into that parasympathetic, the more we can open, right, to and metabolize cortisol and adrenaline rather than it disrupting and it being chronic. And then when it does start to become chronic, when the stress hormones stay activated in our system for a long time and it becomes chronic, that's when our symptoms start to come into our experience, right? Our fatigue or sleep issues or our mood or our hormonal issues or gut issues, right? So yeah, I think I'll leave it there for now and inviting you now just to start shifting into our practice. So you might decide to get comfortable, right? Like I hope you decide to get comfortable, inviting you to get comfortable in some way. And maybe you grab a pillow if you can lay down, maybe you grab a blanket, just making yourself maybe 5 or 10% more comfortable. And if you're in the car, maybe you're picking up the kids or you're waiting for something in between, you're in a transitional period, maybe you put the seat back, right? You let your head be held for a moment, looking around your space, noticing what in your space feels okay. What in your space feels good? And where can you notice that in your body? Where do you notice the support underneath you? Maybe you notice your breath and you can begin to maybe sigh it out. Maybe you take a moment and just wipe away the stress in your body, wiping the kidneys, the adrenals, maybe your legs or your arms, just gentle wipes or flicks, just to help you transition to let go, to discharge whatever might be sitting on the surface, wiping down your chest. Whatever part of your body wants a little bit of wiping down, a little bit of release of letting go. Maybe you shake it out. And from here, I invite you to bring your hands to your ears. And I invite you to start at the top of your ears and just begin to push gently between your thumb and forefinger, pressing gently on your ears, and just slowly making your way down to your earlobes, pressing on your earlobes, maybe gently pulling the earlobes. Coming once again to the top of the ears, doing that one more time, pressing from the top of the ears all the way down. And you can even put your fingers in the little notch in the ear there, pushing gently on that space, making your way to the earlobes, pulling on the earlobes. You might take your fingers and just gently push like you would a Q-tip in the top part of the ear, gently pressing. Taking the back, or taking your finger to the back of your ears and just rubbing the back of your ears. And once again, there's a little notch. If you come down, there's a little notch if you're watching on YouTube. It's right there, right where the jaw kind of meets the bottom of the ear. You might just press a little there gently. This can be a sensitive spot. A few more times here, just slowly at your own pace. Coming to the top of the ear and then just rubbing your finger all the way down, pressing that notch at the bottom. You might stop and just push that little notch, or you could even start to move down your jaw, separating your teeth, rubbing your hands along either side of your jaw. Yeah, beautiful. And then from here, you might just take gentle strokes down throat and thyroid. Gentle strokes. Moving now to stroking or rubbing the heart. Maybe tapping the heart, alternating, tapping. And then coming back up to the head and squeezing the occipital lobes, rubbing or running your hands down the back of your head to that little notch there and squeezing. You might take a really nice big grip here, right, with the thumb and the four fingers squeezing right behind the head, right behind the neck, right where the head and neck come together. Just giving a few good squeezes. A few more. Great. And then we'll do one more. Just taking that tapping motion and just tapping the top of the head. Alternating taps. Beautiful. And as I transition and grab my forks, I just invite you for about 30 seconds or so to go back to one of those practices. Maybe you just stay with the tapping on the head, that's fine. Or maybe you go towards the ears, or the tapping on the heart, or the squeezes in the back of the head. And just take about 30 seconds and just practice whichever one feels the best or the one that's most interesting to you. And I'll grab my fork. Yeah, about 15 more seconds. Just exploring. You might alternate. You might go towards a different practice. Beautiful. And then just take a moment and notice how you are. Notice if there's an exhale or a yawn, or maybe a swallow that wants to come through, just indicating that there's been a shift in the nervous system. Not that there has to be a shift, not that anything about how you are in this moment needs to actually be changed, because it doesn't. We don't practice in anticipation to change things. We practice so we can be with how things are. And oftentimes there is a shift when we do practice. But that's not the purpose of practice. The practice is designed to help us stay with how we are, to be with ourselves, to notice what sensations are coming up. Notice what thoughts or feelings are there. That's why we practice, so we can bring some down regulation to our system, enough to be with ourselves, because that's really what this work is about, is how can we build that relationship to ourselves. So really good job of practicing, and we'll start now to our energetic healing using the tuning fork in your central channel. So sometimes we do the field work, but today we're going to do just the central channel. Since we've talked about this flow, and I've used that term a lot in this episode, but that's really what I think about when we want to bring in more of the parasympathetic. I think about that flow from the head, the cranial nerve, all the way down our body. And so I'm going to actually start on the crown of the head, right? And work our way down today from the crown of the head, and using the 222 hertz fork. Yeah. So this is where I breathe a lot. So if you hear me breathing, feel free to also take that deep breath. Right? And I'm just holding steady at the crown of the head for a moment, just allowing some of that energy that might be stuck in the mind, just letting that energy soften so that it can move down the central channel and out your feet. So there's a lot of mental chatter going on right now, and nothing wrong with that. Oftentimes when there's a lot of that mental chatter still happening, it's a sign that we can benefit from a little bit more discharge. So if you feel as if there's some mental activity happening, let's come back to a little bit more shaking or the sound. So sound, I talk about sound a lot, but in particular today, since we're working on the vagus nerve, right above the heart space. Heart space and above, the throat is part of that. So for some of us, there's some mental activity in the mind, so we're kind of stuck in the mind, but then also there's a little bit of gunk or debris, so to speak, in the flow in our voice. So I really encourage you to sigh it out. And as you sigh it out, I want you to really relax the shoulders. So it's like maybe you bring the shoulders up to the ears and then drop them as you exhale. So it's, yeah, maybe you do that a few times, right? Shoulders up to the ears and then, that's it. A few more times. Yeah, beautiful. And then just noticing what's alive for you in your body. And then placing your hands on that place. Maybe it's your heart, maybe it's your throat, maybe it's your head. Just allowing the flow of energy from the head, down the throat, down the heart, down the diaphragm and belly. And we're just going to keep letting that energy flow right out the feet. Yeah, that's it. Nothing else you need to do in this moment. Just allow that flow of energy to unclog, de-stick that vagus nerve. That's it. Just stay with that image of the river flowing from your head down to your feet. Yeah. Each strike of the fork brings a little bit more energy from that river so that it can unstick the debris, the rocks, the branches. Right? Each strike of that fork brings a little bit more of that energy, that flow from the head all the way to the feet. Yeah, that's it. Letting yourself experience that nourishment, that rest, that regulated, calm, relaxed, open state, even for just a moment. Maybe you experience it greatly, or maybe it's just a little moment of opening or shifting, and all of that is great. And maybe none of that is happening for you, and that's okay. If you're not perceiving that shift right now, it doesn't mean that change isn't happening. Yeah, that's it. We'll stick here for just another few moments. Yeah, I can feel the shoulders softening, pulling down the back a little bit. You can feel the throat opening as the shoulders drop. There's more space in the neck. I'm just noticing how your throat or chin might be. Do you have your throat open, or is the chin tucked? How does it feel to open the throat? Maybe supporting it with a blanket or a pillow or a headrest, supporting the back of the head so the throat can feel more open. Yeah, once again, inviting in any sound. Sighs. Yeah, beautiful. All right, just a few more strikes of the fork. Okay, my loves, taking a moment to ground back into your body, feel your feet, wiggle your toes. If you have the space and the time, by all means, stay exactly as you are. And just sending you so much love. Stay in touch. Join the Somatic Self Healers community. All those links are in the show notes, and I love to hear from you. So if something really resonated, you want to share, I absolutely would love it. So send me an email, send me a direct message, Instagram, however you want to find me. I would love it. And send this to somebody who you know could use it. Yeah. All right, my loves, I'll see you in 2 weeks when we drop another episode, continuing with this journey through the vagus nerve, and I'll see you then. Bye now.